Hello and welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be learning something quite interesting, the cell theory. Now, the cell theory is a fundamental concept in biology that explains the structure, function, and origin of cells. It provides a framework for understanding that all living organisms are composed of cells and emphasizes their importance as the basic units of life. Isn't this quite interesting? So let's look at the main postulates of the cell theory. Number one, all living organisms are made up of one or more cells. And this means that cells are the structural and functional units of life, even in organisms that may be unicellular, like bacteria, or multicellular organisms, like humans. The second postulate is that the cell is the basic unit of life. This means that it is the smallest unit capable of carrying out life processes independently. The third postulate is that all cells arise from pre existing cells. This means that new cells are formed by the process of cell division. Examples include mitosis or meiosis. The fourth postulate is that cells contain hereditary information. So, genetic material in the form of DNA is passed from parent cells to daughter cells during cell division. The fifth postulate is that energy flow occurs within cells. This means that metabolic processes like respiration and photosynthesis takes place within cells. All this has been condensed or compressed into what we call the modern cell theory. And this is summarized in three core principles. Number one, all living organisms are composed of one or more cells. Number two, the cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. And number three, all cells arise from pre existing cells through cellular division. So, all these postulates did not just fall from the sky. A bunch of people came together and studied together and came up with this theory. So, let's look at the contributors to the cell theory. And the journey of cell theory begins in 1665 with Robert Hooke. Using a microscope, he examined thin slices of cork and observed small box like structures. He named these structures cells, inspired by their resemblance to the rooms in a monastery. So, nearly 2 years later, significant advances in microscopy set the stage for groundbreaking discoveries. In 1838, a botanist named Matthias Schleiden proposed that plants are composed entirely of cells. Around the same time, a zoologist named Theodore Schwann observed a similar phenomenon in animals. Together, they articulated the idea that all living organisms are composed of cells. This marked a major step in biological sciences. However, their work left questions unanswered. For instance, Schleiden believed that cells formed spontaneously, a view that was later disproven. This is where Rudolf Virchow made a critical contribution. In 1855, Rudolf Virchow introduced the principle. In Latin, it states omnis cellula e cellula. This means that all cells arise from pre existing cells. This insight refuted the idea of spontaneous generation and solidified the foundation of cell theory as we understand it today. While the cell theory is universally accepted, there are some exceptions. And this can be found in viruses. This is because viruses lack cellular structure and cannot perform metabolic activities on their own. They rely on host cells for replication. Because of this, viruses are called obligate intracellular parasites. Another exception is found in prokaryotic organisms like bacteria. This is because bacteria lack true nucleus and membrane bound organelles, yet they are considered living cells. The third and final one is mitochondria and chloroplasts. These organelles contain their own DNA and can reproduce independently within eukaryotic cells. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing to the channel. Do me a solid by clicking the thumbs up button and the share button.